everyone, thanks so much for watching. I had so much fun last week walking you through the rebate management module that I decided I'm going to keep this going and start a series called Hi Haley. So each week I'm going to meet with someone new, whether that be an Ascendex team member, a client, or even a strategic partner. So to kick it all off, I'm meeting today with my friend Matt Leardahl. He's the director of ERP here at Ascendex, and he's going to walk us through how to create a simple Power Automate flow. So check it out.
Hi, Matt. Thanks so much for joining. Glad you're our first guest.
Thanks for having me. I'm very honored to be the first guest.
Awesome. Well, why don't you introduce yourself, and then to keep this fun, maybe tell us what you're currently watching on TV.
Sure. So I'm Matt Leardahl. I'm a director in the ERP practice at Ascendex, focused primarily on Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. But what we'll see today is that with F&O, you'll run into Power Apps and Power Automate quite a bit because it's one of those kind of unique features that Microsoft has that can integrate directly into ERPs and makes things like creating new scripts, things like that, pretty easy from the user's perspective.
Awesome. So, favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show or what I'm watching right now?
Let's do what you're currently watching.
Right. Well, right now we're watching Masters of the Air on Apple TV. So very similar to kind of Band of Brothers, but they're flying around in airplanes instead of running around on the ground.
Is that
But
the
it
one
is
with
really good.
Elvis in it?
Yes, Elvis is in that one.
All right. Well, so since you're the pro at Power Automate, why don't you walk us through a simple one?
All right. So what we have here is the Power Apps homepage. So today we're going to be creating a Power Automate script. But you can create that either from the Power Apps website, make.powerapps.com, or you can make it from make.powerautomate.com as well. So very similar looking websites, but they do have kind of some of the same functionality. So what we're going to do today, we're just going to create a kind of a random script. We're actually going to look at the weather and tell Haley whether or not she needs to wear a jacket when she goes outside later today. So we're going to just create it directly as a flow here. What you'll see is there's a tab on the left side called Solutions. I usually use Solutions, put things in there, so it's easy to transfer things between environments. Not required, but definitely recommended. But today, we're just going to go through a normal flow. Maybe another time we can do some more info on Solutions. But to create a new flow, I'm going to click the Flow tab on the left, and there's a button here called New Flow. And then we're going to see there's a bunch of different options on how we want to create the flow. We can make an automated cloud flow, so it can be run based on a trigger in an external system. So you can have a flow run based on something that comes out of finance and operations. You can do something coming out of Salesforce. There's a lot of different options there. You can also do an instant cloud flow. So this is good for building flows directly from a Power App. Otherwise, you can run them manually using that instant cloud flow. And then the third option I'm going to talk to is the scheduled cloud flow. So you can have this set so that it runs a script basically anytime you want on a recurring schedule. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to click that scheduled cloud flow. And the first thing we're going to see, it's going to ask me for some basic information about the flow. So the first thing is going to be the flow name. So we're just going to call this the Weather Power Automate script. And then we can tell it what time we want this to start at. So I want to run this at 6 in the morning so that Haley knows what the weather is going to be like when she wakes up in the morning. So we're going to say 6 a.m. and then we want to run it every day instead of every minute. That might be a little overkill. So then we're going to go ahead and click the create button, and we're going to see it's going to bring us into kind of the workspace for actually creating that script. So the first thing we're going to see at the top is it created a trigger box for me. This one's based on the recurrence. Might look a little bit different if we made an instant cloud flow versus a manual one. But what we can do here is we can make changes to the settings from that first page that we were just on. So just because you make a decision on that first page doesn't mean that you can't fix it here or make changes to it. So we could also change it from that scheduled flow to an instant or a manual one if we need to. But we'll just leave the settings as they are for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and click New Step. And this is going to be our action. So we've got the trigger. So now we need to make an action. So this time I'm going to go with the weather action. So you're going to see that there's actually a bunch of kind of built-in actions here. So just kind of scrolling through, you can see there's things like Excel, that weather one that we're going to use, emails, Dataverse tables, things like that. So there's a lot of built-in stuff that you can use here. But again, today we're just going to be using the weather action. So I'm just going to search for that. And then we're going to see that we have some actions for the weather here. I'm going to pick the get forecast for today. And then what we're going to see, and this is pretty consistent across all of the different actions that we're going to see, it's going to give me some options on how I want to actually query that data. So in this case here, it's going to ask me for basically where I want to get the weather from. And I'm just going to say Atlanta, if I can spell today, Atlanta, Georgia. And then we can specify what unit of measure that we want to have the results returned in. So I'm just going to leave that as the default there. Once we have that, we can kind of handle the data when it comes back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new step here. And then this time we're going to pick the control box. And then this is going to give me some more options here. These I like to think of as kind of programming language terms. So the condition would be something like an if statement. And apply to each would be like a for loop, things like that. So there's a lot of control that you have over doing this, but we're just going to pick the condition one for now. And then in the value, we're going to be able to select a value that was returned from the previous steps. Right now, we only have one step in our flow here. So I'm only going to have options for data returned from the forecast. But if we had multiple different steps running prior to this, we may be able to info. So I'm going to pick the field here. Once I select that, it's going to show me all different fields that are returned from the get forecast for today. So what I'm looking for is, let's just look for a temperature. All right, so we've got the temperature low here. And then what we'll see is we have, just like in programming terms, we can say is equal to, not equal to, greater than. So we're going to say, let's say if it's less than, and Haley, what do you think is a cold temperature?
Naturally, 60.
60 degrees, all right. So basically what we have this set now is that if the low temperature returned from our forecast in Atlanta is less than 60 degrees, it's going to fire off the action that we put into the yes checkbox here. Now, if it's greater than 60, it's going to fire off whatever action we put into the no checkbox. So what we'll have this do is we'll just have it send Haley an email every morning. This is going to be at 6 a.m. because that's when the script is going to run. And we're going to click add action here. And then we can go ahead and find what action we want to take. So the search is pretty good. So I'd recommend just using that with whatever you're looking for. So we're just going to say email. And then I'm going to say send an email. So then just like we saw in the weather box, it's going to give me some different options here on what my parameters are going to be for sending the email. So we're going to say we want to send this to Haley. And we'll see it connects to my Active Directory. So it's pretty straightforward that way, in that I can just search for a name and it'll give me the email address back. So we're going to select on that guy, and then we can give it a subject. So if it's less than 60, I'm going to say, it's cold out. I'm going to say, please wear a jacket. It is going to be a low of. And then what I can do is I can actually put in dynamic content from the above box here. So I can take that temperature, I can put it directly into the email body. So to do that, we're going to click this add dynamic content. And then we're going to see it's going to give us those same options that we saw that we put into the control box. So just like the adding the action, I can search for something. So I'm going to just search for low. And then we're going to see it's going to give me the low temperature. So then what we can also do is we can add in more information. We can build things like tables into the body, things like that. We're just going to keep it simple today and just have it tell Haley what the low temperature is. But what we can also do is we can add some additional information. We can do a send as. So if my email account can send from like a shared mailbox, something like that, we could put that into here. And we could also CC and BC different people, BCC people if we'd like. And we can also do is add attachments. So if we had like a PDF version of the weather report, we could certainly do something like that as well. But for now, we're just going to leave that as is. And what I always like to do is rename these boxes so it's easy to kind of troubleshoot if something goes wrong. So we're just going to change this here to say rename. We'll just say it is cold out email. All right, and then what we can do is we can add in our no condition. So there's two ways we can do that. We could go through those same steps that we just did, or I can just copy paste it from the yes checkbox to the no, and then make my changes there. So we're going to do the copy function. That's a lot easier. So we're going to click the three little dots here, and we're going to see there's a option for copy to my clipboard. So I'm going to click on that guy, and then we're going to click add an action in the if no checkbox. And then what we're going to see on this form is that we have a tab called My Clipboard. So what that's going to show me is anything that I've added to my clipboard from that copy function. So we're just going to select this one here. I'm going to see it's going to reload for me, but then it's going to add that copy from the original to the new one. We're going to see it just adds basically a number at the end, but we can always rename it so that we kind of know what we're looking at. Say it's warm out email. So then what I'm going to do is change the subject and then the body, and then we should be good to go. And we'll just change the body here. And then we should be all set. So then what I'm going to do after I've made all the changes is I'm going to click save. And I would definitely recommend clicking save much more often than I did here, because this has burned me quite a few times in the past when you don't save it. But what it'll also do is it'll validate everything looks good. There's no missing fields, anything like that when you do the save. So more often the better. But then what we can do after we've saved it, we can go ahead and test it. So there's two ways we can test it. We could just wait till tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I don't think we want to do that unless this would be the longest video ever. So we're just going to click the test box, the test button, the top right, and then we'll just run it manually. So when I click test, it'll give me the ability to click manually, and this is just running as is. Otherwise, we can run this automatically checkbox. If we run this before and there was an error or something like that, you can run it with the same parameters that it had previously. But since I've never run this before, we're going to have to do it manually. So then I can go ahead and click test. It's running through some validations there. And then what I can do is go ahead and click run flow. And then it'll give you a message here saying the flow has been started. And we can go over to our flows run page and see kind of what our progress is.
I got
So we're going to see here, you got it already. That was fast. All right. So started it 6 seconds ago. It took about 2 seconds to run. And we got this green box saying that the status was successful. So then what I can do is I can go ahead and click on the start time, and I can actually see what information was processed as part of this script. So we'll first look at the forecast, and we'll see it went out, found Atlanta, Georgia's weather forecast for today. Looks like it's going to be rainy, 86% chance. But what we're looking for is that low temperature. And then what we'll do is we'll go to our condition again, and we'll see what happened. So this is going to tell me basically what steps it ran through. So we'll see that it the temperature was below 60, so it was 57. So it used the yes checkbox because we were set to have it basically say anything below 60. And then it sent out this email. So it sent the email to Haley with the subject line, and then it shows us what the body of that email was. And we'll see that it put in that dynamic information that it found from the script above.
So Matt, if someone wanted to turn off a flow that they had created, would they just change the reoccurrence?
You could do that. Otherwise, you could click the back button. We'll go back to our script here. And then when I click the three little dots, there's this option to say turn off so that you don't get the email tomorrow morning. But we're going to leave it on for a while and see how it works. How about that?
That works for me. I need to know the weather anyway. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for walking us through that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, we'll have to get you back on to help us make Power App next time.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.